The overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. That is the land of unconfirmed. Yes, we came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit? No, I'm sure it did. This was the reaction of then United States Secretary of State Hillary Clinton when Muammar Gaddafi was captured and killed. Today, 13 years after his well-planned and orchestrated death at the hands of Western countries led by the United States and France using NATO, questions remain on why he was overthrown. Not only was he forced to exit the government, but rebel groups were supported who later killed him. His last words reflected confusion about what he did wrong. Gaddafi ruled Libya, one of the most prosperous nations of that time, with next-generation infrastructure development and a strong economy. Then what threat did he pose to the West that he had to be taken care of? Welcome to a new episode of Africarized, a channel where we talk about African history, culture, arts, and civilization. It's a place where you will see the real picture of Africa, its stories, and the events defining it. In this episode, we will debunk the real reasons why Gaddafi was overthrown and killed. Let's get started. In 1969, Libya was a monarchy under King Idris, grappling with underdevelopment despite possessing vast oil reserves. On September 1st of that year, a young military officer named Muammar Gaddafi led a bloodless coup that ousted the king. At just 27 years old, Gaddafi assumed leadership, marking the start of a dramatic transformation for the country. Inspired by Arab nationalism and socialism, Gaddafi sought to reshape Libya into a modern, self-reliant state free from foreign exploitation. He was ready for whatever came his way. Gaddafi's vision for Libya was grounded in the belief that the nation's wealth should benefit its people, not foreign powers. To achieve this, he set out to create a society rooted in economic prosperity, social welfare, and technological innovation. Soon after taking power, he began implementing his long-held plans. One of his most decisive early actions was to nationalize Libya's oil industry, reclaiming control from Western corporations that had long profited from the nation's resources. By redirecting oil revenues to the state, Gaddafi laid the foundation for Libya's transformation into an oil-funded welfare state. This move allowed Libya to invest heavily in its infrastructure, public services, and social programs, revolutionizing the country's economy. Many say that kicking out Western corporations and depriving them of oil profits was one of the reasons Gaddafi had to be eliminated. With time, oil revenue became the engine of Libya's rapid development. Gaddafi's government channeled this wealth into massive infrastructure projects, including roads, hospitals, schools, and housing developments. These investments transformed Libya from one of the poorest nations in the region into an example of economic success. Within years, Libya's per capita income rose to one of the highest in Africa, signaling the country's newfound prosperity. The economic growth witnessed under Gaddafi is considered by many to be unparalleled and unlikely to be replicated. Gaddafi's regime used Libya's oil wealth to provide an extensive range of free or subsidized public services. Healthcare became a priority with modern hospitals and clinics built nationwide, offering free services to all Libyans. Education was also made free from primary school through university, with scholarships available for students to study abroad. Affordable living became a reality, with gasoline sold at extremely low prices. Water infrastructure expanded even to the most remote areas, ensuring clean water for all. In many ways, Libya was ahead of some Western countries in these aspects. These initiatives not only lifted millions of Libyans out of poverty, but also created a social contract between the government and its people, fostering stability and loyalty to Gaddafi's rule. Among Gaddafi's most ambitious undertakings was the Great Man-Made River Project, a $33 billion irrigation system that transported water from underground aquifers to cities and farmlands across Libya's arid deserts. Entirely funded by Libya's state-owned bank, this project turned barren land into fertile farmland and ensured water security for future generations. Called the eighth wonder of the world, it symbolized Libya's self-reliance and Gaddafi's commitment to national progress. Furthermore, Gaddafi united Libya, a nation historically divided by tribal rivalries. Recognizing the importance of maintaining tribal harmony, he equitably distributed oil revenues and incorporated tribal leaders into his governance structure. This approach diffused tensions and secured broad support for his regime. While Gaddafi's authoritarian rule drew criticism from human rights organizations, his strong grip on power ensured that Libya remained stable and secure. By the 1990s, Gaddafi had effectively eliminated insurgent threats, creating a peaceful environment. By doing this, Gaddafi removed the pretext Western powers might use to invade Libya under the guise of ending insurgencies. However, the West found another excuse to target him. Gaddafi's ambitions extended beyond Libya. As a fervent Pan-Africanist, he envisioned uniting Africa into a powerful political and economic bloc, capable of challenging Western dominance. His vision was bold and transformative, but alarmed global powers invested in maintaining the status quo. At the heart of Gaddafi's dream was the creation of a gold-backed African currency, the gold dinar. This currency aimed to free African nations from dependency on the US dollar and European currencies, empowering them to trade oil and other resources on their own terms. The gold dinar would be underpinned by Libya's substantial gold reserves, giving it intrinsic value and stability. In 2009, during his tenure as chairman of the African Union, Gaddafi formally proposed this currency to his African counterparts. Nations like Nigeria, Tunisia, Egypt and Angola expressed interest, raising hopes for a unified African economy free from the constraints of institutions like the IMF and World Bank. However, this vision became one of the reasons for his assassination. The gold dinar posed a direct challenge to the petrodollar system, which underpins US economic dominance by ensuring global oil trade is conducted in US dollars. If African nations began trading oil in gold dinars, global reliance on the dollar would diminish, eroding US economic power. Additionally, the gold dinar threatened the French CFA franc, a colonial-era currency binding 14 African nations to the French economy. By replacing the CFA franc, the gold dinar would dismantle a key mechanism of French influence in Africa. While Gaddafi's vision inspired many African leaders, it provoked opposition from Western powers, who saw it as a threat to the global financial order dominated by the US and Europe. French President Nicolas Sarkozy reportedly referred to Gaddafi as a threat to the financial security of the world. It later emerged that France's support for Libyan rebels was motivated not by humanitarian concerns, but by a desire to neutralize a rising power capable of disrupting the global order. The fear was that a successful gold dinar could shift the balance of global financial power away from the West and toward Africa, creating an economically independent continent. For this reason, Gaddafi became a target for Western powers. Leaked emails from Hillary Clinton's private server, later made public, revealed NATO's real reasons for intervening in Libya. These communications, along with accounts from former French intelligence officials, highlighted three main objectives: dismantling Gaddafi's gold dinar plan, securing Libya's vast oil reserves, and undermining African unity. The Arab Spring protests, sweeping through the Middle East and North Africa in 2011, provided the perfect justification for Western powers to act against Gaddafi. NATO framed its intervention as a humanitarian mission, claiming it was necessary to protect Libyan civilians from atrocities allegedly committed by Gaddafi's forces. In reality, the operation was far more calculated and self-serving. NATO's airstrikes systematically targeted Libya's infrastructure, crippling the country's self-sufficiency. One of the most notable casualties was the Great Man-Made River Project, a $33 billion irrigation system that transformed Libya's deserts into fertile farmland. NATO bombed the pipelines and the factory responsible for producing repair materials, effectively ending the project and destroying a key pillar of Libya's agricultural independence. In addition to targeting critical infrastructure, NATO launched extensive bombing campaigns against military installations and civilian structures, ensuring that Gaddafi's government could not maintain control. This destruction not only destabilized Libya, but also guaranteed that any post-Gaddafi government would be reliant on external support. To further hasten Gaddafi's downfall, NATO provided substantial support to rebel forces. This included air cover, weapons, and resources that tipped the balance of power against Gaddafi's loyalist forces. The intervention allowed rebel groups to gain the upper hand, leading to the rapid collapse of Gaddafi's government. All this was done to ensure the West's power remained intact. By the middle of 2011, Muammar Gaddafi's stronghold on Libya had crumbled under NATO's relentless military campaign. Airstrikes systematically dismantled his regime's military capabilities, targeting infrastructure, supply chains, and key strongholds. While Gaddafi's forces initially managed to suppress internal rebellions with significant success, the intervention by NATO tipped the balance. Rebel forces, supported by Western resources and backing, advanced steadily. In August 2011, rebel forces captured Tripoli, forcing Gaddafi to flee the capital. He sought refuge in Sirte, his hometown and one of the last remaining loyalist strongholds. Sirte became a battleground as Gaddafi's loyalists staged a desperate defense. By October, the city had fallen, leaving Gaddafi vulnerable. On October 20th, 2011, he was captured by rebel forces. His final moments were brutal. He was tortured and publicly executed, a harsh end that was captured on video and broadcast worldwide. His death marked not only the collapse of his 42-year rule, but also the end of his bold vision for African unity and independence. However, many in Libya, including the rebels, did not realize they were being used. The removal of Gaddafi was not the beginning of peace, but the start of unprecedented chaos in Libya. The NATO intervention left the nation fractured and unstable, with devastating consequences that resonate to this day. Without Gaddafi's centralized leadership, Libya quickly disintegrated into a patchwork of rival factions, tribes, militias, and warlords, each seeking control over territory and resources. Successive attempts to establish a central government were undermined by infighting and mistrust, leaving Libya without effective governance. The resulting political fragmentation created a power vacuum that destabilized the region. The economic consequences were equally dire. Libya's oil industry, which had once funded extensive social programs and infrastructure, collapsed. Key oil facilities were taken over by militias, drastically reducing production and exports. Corruption and mismanagement further eroded the country's financial stability. Ordinary Libyans, who had once enjoyed free healthcare, education, and a high standard of living, were left struggling in a deteriorating economy. For the African continent, Gaddafi's fall marked the end of an ambitious dream. His gold dinar initiative, which sought to establish an independent African currency, lost its momentum without his leadership. While the NATO operation achieved its goal of removing Gaddafi, it plunged Libya into chaos. On the humanitarian front, Libya became a hub for human trafficking and illegal migration, with thousands risking their lives to cross the Mediterranean in search of safety. The once secure nation, free from insurgent threats under Gaddafi's rule, became a breeding ground for extremist groups, further destabilizing the region. The events leading to Gaddafi's removal were far more calculated than publicly portrayed. Former French intelligence chief Jean-François Luer, in his book, revealed the covert operations and political maneuvering behind the scenes. He described NATO's intervention as a military success but a political disaster, criticizing its lack of foresight and morally questionable motives. In the years preceding the conflict, Gaddafi had made overtures to Western powers, offering to open Libya's economy to foreign investment. These efforts were part of a broader strategy to ensure his regime's survival while maintaining control over Libya's resources. However, Western leaders, particularly in France and the United States, viewed Gaddafi as a destabilizing figure. His vision for African unity and the gold dinar was seen as a direct threat to their economic dominance. Tragically, actors from Libya itself were used to eliminate Gaddafi. It would have been nearly impossible to end Gaddafi without NATO's support from inside Libya. But after he was removed for Western benefits, Libyans saw how the West had used them. Today, Libya's economy, once one of Africa's strongest, has suffered a severe decline since 2011. Before the fall of Gaddafi, Libya's GDP stood at approximately $75 billion in 2010, with a per capita GDP of around $12,250, among the highest in Africa. The oil revenues that funded this wealth enabled the government to provide a robust welfare system and public services. However, the civil war caused by Western propaganda led to a 62.1% contraction in GDP. While the economy showed signs of recovery in 2012, it has remained highly unstable. GDP per capita today lags significantly behind pre-war levels, reflecting the broader economic turmoil. Libya's oil industry, the backbone of its economy, has been hit hard. Under Gaddafi, the country produced approximately 1.6 million barrels of oil per day, accounting for 95% of its export revenue. Post-2011, oil production has frequently dropped below 1 million barrels per day due to persistent conflict and infrastructure sabotage. Political standoffs have further slashed production, crippling Libya's ability to rebuild its economy. Libya once prided itself on strong human development metrics. Under Gaddafi, the nation had a comprehensive healthcare system free for all citizens and a life expectancy of 74 years. Post-2011, the healthcare sector has crumbled due to infrastructure damage, shortages of medical supplies, and the collapse of public health administration. Life expectancy has declined and mortality rates have risen, especially among vulnerable populations. The ongoing conflict has devastated Libya's infrastructure. The Great Man-Made River Project, a $33 billion irrigation system that transformed arid deserts into fertile farmland and supplied water to millions, was a notable casualty. Bombing campaigns targeted critical pipeline factories, crippling Libya's ability to maintain or repair the system. Today, water scarcity poses a significant challenge for communities across the country. Libya can never again be what it was under Gaddafi, and that's precisely what the West planned. If Gaddafi had been allowed to continue, he might have ended Western hegemony and power over the world. Do you see a pattern in the assassinations of great African leaders loved by their nations but mysteriously eliminated? Let us know in the comments section below. What if Colonel Muammar Gaddafi was alive today? Want more videos like this? Subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon, and stay tuned as we bring more content about Africa, its history, rich arts, and culture. Thanks for watching.